The year is 2000. Ford's SVT Mustang Cobra R just dropped. And it's murdering everything Detroit can throw at it. 385 horsepower, 4.7 seconds to 60, independent rear suspension, $55,675. And GM had nothing. The base Corvette was quick, sure. But the Cobra R was a track-bred monster that made Bowling Green look soft. Ford's engineers weren't just winning. They were humiliating Chevrolet on its own turf. Performance cars. Then came 2001, and GM, in a rare moment of clarity, remembered how to build a Corvette that doesn't apologize for existing. This is the Z06. And it ended Ford's 12-month victory lap before Dearborn could finish celebrating. Let me paint you a picture. It's the year 2000. You're a Ford guy. You've spent 55 grand on a Cobra R. No air conditioning, no radio, no rear seats. But you don't care. Because you're driving the fastest American production car money can buy. You pull into Cars and Coffee. You rev that 5.4-liter Z06 V8. Everyone turns. You're the king. Then, a yellow Corvette pulls up next to you. Fixed roof, wider tires. Sounds angrier than it should. Plot twist. It just ran 4.3 seconds to 60. That's 0.4 seconds quicker than your $55,000 Ford. Oh, and it cost $47,500. Welcome to 2001. The year GM stopped being polite. The 2001 Chevrolet Corvette Z06 wasn't just a performance upgrade. It was a declaration of war. Ford had spent the year 2000 flexing with the Cobra R. 300 units of stripped-down, track-focused fury. Independent rear suspension, racing buckets, DOHC complexity, and zero compromises for comfort. Dearborn's engineers thought they'd built the ultimate American performance car. They had, for exactly 12 months. Then Bowling Green said, "Hold my pushrod." Here's what GM did. They took the C5 Corvette, already a solid performer, and asked a dangerous question. What if we stopped worrying about Grandpa's feelings and built a street-legal race car? The answer arrived in 2001. And it cost $8,000 less than the Cobra R while running circles around it. Let that marinate. The Z06 wasn't born in a vacuum. It came from Corvette Racing's C5R program, the same cars that would dominate Le Mans with back-to-back 1-2 finishes in 2001 and 2002. Pratt and Miller built those race cars for GM Racing. They won 8 victories in 10 races in 2001. Including dominant class victories at the 24 Hours of Daytona. The Street Z06, it was the race car's slightly civilized cousin. Very slightly. Dave Hill, Corvette's chief engineer, wanted a production car that felt like the showroom stock endurance racers from the mid-80s. Mission accomplished. Let's talk numbers, because this is where it gets beautiful. 385 horsepower at 6,000 RPM. 385 pound-feet of torque at 4,800 RPM. Wait, that's the same power as the Cobra R. Correct, same horsepower. But here's the difference. The Z06's LS6 engine was a 5.7-liter Pushrod V8. Simple. 2 valves per cylinder. Old-school overhead valve design. The Cobra R, 5.4-liter DOHC. 4 valves per cylinder. 4 camshafts. Complex as a Swiss watch. One of these engines was faster. Wanna guess which one? Car and Driver tested both. 2001 comparison test. Cobra R versus Z06 versus Viper GTS ACR. Cobra R, 4.7 seconds to 60. 13.2 seconds at 110 miles per hour in the quarter. Z06, 4.3 seconds to 60. 12.7 seconds at 113 miles per hour. The simpler pushrod engine, in the cheaper car, absolutely demolished Ford's complex DOHC masterpiece. Detroit's accountants and engineers finally agreed on something. Less can be more. But wait, it gets better. The Cobra R cost $55,675. And for that money, you got no air conditioning, no radio, no rear seats. It was a track car with license plates. The Z06, $47,500. Full interior, air conditioning, radio, actual comfort. You could drive it to work, then drive it to the track, then drive it home, then repeat the next day. Ford built a race car. GM built a race car you could actually live with. Let's examine the LS6 engine, because this is where Bowling Green's engineers earned their paychecks. Start with the LS1 from the base C5, 5.7 liters, 350 horsepower. Good, but not great. Now, redesign the cylinder heads. Smaller 65 cubic centimeter combustion chambers versus the LS1's 68. Larger intake runners, 210 cubic centimeters. Larger exhaust runners, 75 cubic centimeters. 10% better airflow than LS1 heads. Beehive valve springs, stronger than LS1's. Sodium-filled exhaust valves. Lighter, higher lift camshaft. More aggressive valve overlap. Redline, 6,500 RPM. The LS1 stopped at 6,000. The block got modifications too. GM's engineers cut quarter-size slots into the webs underneath the piston travel. Windows in the crankcase walls. Why? Reduce air pumping. Let the engine breathe at higher RPM. Simple physics applied intelligently. The intake manifold? Larger passages, larger runners, larger diameter mass airflow sensor. 30 pound-per-hour fuel injectors versus the LS1's 26. Cast iron exhaust manifolds replaced the LS1's stamped steel. 4-into-1 short header design. Then, the coup de grace, titanium catback exhaust. 22 pounds lighter than stainless steel. Result, 385 horsepower. Same as the Cobra R's complex DOHC, but faster in the real world. Still with me? Good. Because the performance gets more ridiculous. 0 to 60, 4.3 seconds. Tested by Car and Driver with 1,400 miles on the engine. Motor Week got 4.5. GM claimed 4.0. Let's use the conservative magazine number, 4.3. Quarter mile, 12.7 seconds at 113 miles per hour. Verified. Repeatable. Devastating. For context, the legendary ZR1 Corvette from the early 90s, with its LT5 dual overhead cam engine, ran roughly 4.9 seconds to 60. The Z06 was over half a second quicker, and it cost $30,000 less. Top speed? 168 miles per hour. Drag limited by the shorter final drive gearing. Skid pad? 0.98 G. Car and Driver called it one of the best we've ever seen for a production car. Braking? 70 to 0 and 152 feet. 60 to 0 averaged 104 feet. 12.6-inch vented discs, front and rear. Brake cooling ducts in the rear fenders. Goodyear, Eagle F1, SC tires developed specifically for the Z06. 20 millimeters wider than standard C5 rubber. This wasn't a Corvette. This was a weapon with a warranty. Now, let's talk about what GM removed to make this work. Weight. The eternal enemy of performance. Fixed roof coupe only. No convertible. No targa top. That alone saved mass and increased chassis rigidity. Thinner glass. Lighter wheels. Non-EMT tires. No run-flat technology adding weight. Reduced sound deadening. Lighter battery. Fixed rear radio aerial instead of power retractable. The titanium exhaust system, 22 pounds lighter than the base car's stainless. Final weight, 3,126 pounds, 54 pounds less than the last C5 hardtop, 130 pounds less than the standard coupe. Less weight, more power, better tires, stiffer suspension. Formula, perfected. The suspension deserves its own paragraph. Because this is where the Z06 separated itself from the base C5 FE4 suspension package. Negative camber, minus 0.75 degrees front and rear. Stiffer springs, larger stabilizer bars, independent front and rear suspension, because this is a Corvette, not a Mustang still living with a live axle. No offense to Dearborn. Wait, actually, yeah, offense intended. At Mid-Ohio during development testing, the Z06 ran consistently 2 seconds per lap faster than a Z51-equipped base Corvette. Development target was 3 to 4 seconds faster than the standard hardtop. They exceeded the target. The transmission, M12 6-speed manual. Stronger than the base C5's MM6. More aggressive gearing, Z06 exclusive. Manual only. Zero automatic option. You want a Z06? You row your own gears. Final drive. 3.4, 2-to-1. Perfect balance between acceleration and top speed. Limited slip differential included. Because sending 385 horsepower to one wheel is, let's be generous, suboptimal. Here's the brutal part for Ford. The Cobra R wasn't slow. 4.7 seconds to 60 is genuinely quick. But the Z06 was quicker. 0.4 seconds quicker. In the automotive world, that's not a margin. That's a gap. That's embarrassing. The quarter mile, Cobra R ran 13.2 at 110. The Z06 ran 12.7 at 113. Half a second quicker. 3 miles per hour faster trap speed. Ford spent millions developing that DOHC 5.4. They built 300 units. They charged $55,675. And GM, with a simpler pushrod engine in a cheaper car, just embarrassed them completely. I'll wait while you process that. Now let's add the Dodge Viper GTS ACR to this fight. Because Car and Driver did, February 2001, 3 cars, 3 philosophies, 1 winner. Viper GTS ACR, 460 horsepower, V10, 4.3 seconds to 60, tied with the Z06. Quarter mile, 12.6 at 114, slightly quicker than the Corvette by 1/10 of a second. Price? $85,268 base. $88,814 is tested. Skid pad? 0.96 G. The Z06 beat it with 0.98. Raw power. The Viper had it. 75 more horses than the Z06, but the Corvette was more refined. Better technology, traction control, stability control, electronic brains that made the Viper seem like a 4-wheeled Neanderthal. Oh, and the Z06 cost little more than half the price. Car and driver's verdict? Corvette Z06 wins. By a single point. Their reasoning. Almost as fast, just about as pretty, certainly plenty exciting. Costs almost $8,000 less than the Cobra, little more than half the price of the Viper. Has more amenities and space than either one. Let's recap. The Z06 tied the Viper to 60, beat the Cobra R by nearly half a second, outhandled the Viper on the skid pad. Cost $47,500 versus $55,675 versus $85,268. Included air conditioning and a radio. Best performance per dollar in America. Period. But here's what makes this truly special. The Z06 wasn't some ultra-limited, unobtainium special. Year 1, 2001, GM built 5,773 units. Compare that to the Cobra Rs, 300. Year 2, 2002, production jumped to 8,297 units. 43% growth. That's not a fluke, that's demand. Oh, and for 2002, GM bumped the LS6 to 405 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque. Stronger clutch. Anti-hop algorithm. 0 to 60 dropped to 3.9 seconds. Peak production? 2003 with 8,635 units. Final year, 2004, brought 5,683 units as the C5 generation ended. Total Z06 production, 28,388 units over 4 years. Compare that accessibility to the Cobra R's exclusivity. 300 units. 1 year, gone. The Z06? You could walk into a Chevrolet dealer in 2001 and order one. Maybe wait a few months. But you could get one. Ford built a unicorn. GM built a production car that performed like a unicorn. Which strategy aged better? Check current auction prices. The Racing Connection wasn't marketing fluff. The C5R won at Le Mans, 1-2 finish in the GTS class in 2001, repeated it in 2002. 3 total class wins at Le Mans, one of the most dominant GT cars of recent memory. That racing program directly influenced the street Z06. Dave Hill wanted showroom stock endurance car feel. The C5R gave him the blueprint. 2004 brought the Le Mans commemorative edition. 2,025 units. Le Mans blue metallic with red and silver stripes. Carbon fiber hood on the Z06 version. Celebrating those 1-2 finishes. Racing on Sunday, selling on Monday. The old formula, proven again. Let's talk about what the Z06 meant for Corvette's reputation. For years, the Corvette was, let's be honest, America's sports car for accountants. Fast in a straight line, questionable in corners, comfortable, reliable, but not serious. The ZR1 changed that perception in the 90s. Dual overhead cams, Lotus-designed engine, complex, expensive, rare. Then the ZR1 ended, and Corvette went back to being fine. The Z06 brought the performance back, but this time, GM did it the American way. Pushrod simplicity, brutal effectiveness, half the price of exotics. It brought Corvette onto the world stage as something that performed like a supercar at a bargain price. Ferrari and Porsche weren't laughing anymore. The 2001 Z06 proved something fundamental. You don't need complexity to win. Ford's Cobra R had DOHC, 4 valves per cylinder, 4 cams, independent rear suspension, a Mustang rarity. The Z06, 2 valves, push rods, ancient overhead valve architecture that dated back decades. Yet, the simpler car was faster, more efficient, cheaper to build, easier to maintain, more reliable. Sometimes, the old ways work. Think about the engineering philosophy here. GM could have built a complex, exotic engine. They could have chased DOHC technology, variable valve timing, turbochargers. Instead, they took the LS1, already a solid engine, and made it better through fundamentals. Better heads, better cam, better breathing, higher compression, no gimmicks, no complexity for complexity's sake. Just improve what works. Result, an engine that made the same power as Ford's DOHC masterpiece while being simpler, lighter, more compact, and cheaper. That's not luck. That's engineering discipline. The tire package deserves mention. Goodyear developed the Eagle F1 SC specifically for the Z06. Front, 265/40 ZR17 on 9.5-inch wheels. Rear, 295/35 ZR18 on 10.5-inch wheels. Staggered setup, 20 millimeters wider than standard C5 rubber. Massive contact patches. Those tires, combined with the negative camber and FE4 suspension, gave the Z06 that 0.98G skid pad number. For perspective, that's supercar territory in 2001. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. The Z06 wasn't perfect. It was harsher than the base C5. The ride was stiffer. Road noise was louder with the reduced sound deadening. The titanium exhaust was enthusiastically vocal. Early 2001 LS6 engines had higher oil consumption. GM addressed it. But it happened. The interior was still Corvette, which means functional and durable, but not luxurious. But here's the thing. Nobody bought a Z06 expecting Lexus refinement. They bought it to embarrass Ferraris at track days while driving it home afterward. Mission accomplished. Let's revisit that 2000 rivalry one more time, because this is the heart of the story. Year 2000, Ford's Cobra R dominated. GM had nothing that could compete. The base C5 was good. The Cobra R was better. Dearborn celebrated. 12 whole months of supremacy. Then year 2001 arrived, and GM, in a rare burst of competence, dropped the Z06. 4.3 seconds to 60. $47,500. Available in your local Chevrolet showroom. Ford's 12-month reign, over. Plot twist. The simpler car won. Here's what car and driver said about that comparison test. The Z06 is almost as fast as the Viper, more comfortable than the Cobra R, and costs thousands less than both. That's not marketing. That's objective measurement. The Z06 won because it was the most complete package. Not the most powerful, not the most hardcore, the most complete. Fast enough to hang with anything. Comfortable enough for daily driving. Cheap enough that mere mortals could afford it. American performance, democratized. Think about what GM accomplished here. They built a street-legal race car based on their Le Mans program, kept it naturally aspirated, kept it manual only, fixed roof only, no compromises for mass appeal. Then, they built over 28,000 of them. Ford built 300 Cobra Rs and called it exclusive. GM built 28,000 Z06s and called it Tuesday. That's the difference between a halo car and a performance icon. The Z06 ended in 2004 with the C5 generation, but its legacy didn't. The C6 Z06 arrived in 2006, 505 horsepower, 7-liter LS7 engine, sub 4 seconds 0 to 60. The C7 Z06 came in 2015, 650 horsepower, supercharged LT4. Every Z06 since traces its lineage back to that 2001 original. The car that proved Corvette could build legitimate supercars. Not expensive, not rare, not unobtainable, just fast. Current values? You can find clean 2001 Z06s for around $30,000. High-mile examples go for $15,000 to $20,000. Compare that to Cobra R values. Clean examples bring $70,000 to $90,000. The Cobra R is rarer, more collectible, more valuable, but which one can you actually drive hard without worrying about depreciation? The Z06 wins that argument too. Here's the ultimate question. What did the 2001 Z06 prove? It proved that American performance doesn't need excuses, doesn't need complexity, doesn't need six-figure price tags. It proved that a Pushrod V8, properly developed, could embarrass more sophisticated engines. It proved that GM, when focused, could build world-class sports cars. And it proved that Ford's Cobra R, as impressive as it was, reigned for exactly one model year before Bowling Green ended the party. The 2001 Corvette Z06, 385 horsepower of American simplicity beating European complexity, and Ford's DOHC dreams. 4.3 seconds to 60, $47,500, $28,388 built over 4 years. It won car and driver's comparison test. It cost half what the Viper did. It beat the Cobra R while being $8,000 cheaper and including air conditioning. Best performance per dollar in America. Street legal race car. Daily drivable track weapon. This wasn't just a good Corvette. This was GM. Finally, building the Corvette the enthusiasts always wanted. The Cobra R had its 12 months of glory. The Viper had its raw power. The Z06 had balance, speed, value, accessibility, racing pedigree, and the satisfaction of proving that simpler, when done right, wins. Ford built a hero car. Dodge built a brute. GM built a legend you could actually afford. Check the Extinction Events playlist if you want more stories of Detroit's greatest hits before the world went electric. Or dive into the Eternal War for more Ford versus GM battles that ended careers and built legacies. 1 year. 4.3 seconds. $47,500. Game over. This is Car Chronicles, where we celebrate the cars that proved American performance doesn't need apologies. Just pushrods, horsepower, and the confidence to embarrass anyone who doubted Detroit. Don't be the guy still defending the Cobra R.